Hey guys. Hi. Hey everybody. Yay. So let's see. I don't even know if chat's working. I don't even know if I'm working today. I tell you, everything feels like discombobulated. Yeah, it's Tori time. I know. I'm like, okay, so Jessica, good to see you. All right. Kim, hi. I'm just going to let the gang's all here. Okay. I know. Water. Hi, Laura. Hi, Texas Lassie. Good to see you. Tammy. Hi. Deco Painter and T. Hi. It took me a minute. Crystal. Hi. The lady. Sean and Cooper. Yay. All right. Getting a few hellos underway. Jessica, thanks. You know, it was one of those, you ever have those days, everybody, where you, woo, Planet Sleaze, good to see ya. Thanks for the super chat. We're on like a today. Nurse Nana, let's see, Planet Sleaze, thank you. I love you too, I appreciate that. And see, we're wearing the same color as the super chat's the same color as my outfit. Yay, Coop. So Sean's dog is named Cooper. So, you know me, I'm a dog-o-matic over here. So, I know. Dina, good to see you. Laura, whoo, everybody's piling in. Tammy, happy Friday. Yeah, what's up? Thanks for the super chat, as my friend Duty Ron does. Carlsbad, haven't been there in a while. Man, you're down by the border. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for the super chat. And so tonight, I feel like tonight's gonna be a good time. So I did a radio show the other day, everybody. And what happened was they were playing live music on the radio, right? And so YouTube didn't like that much. So I got kind of dinged, like, you can't have this because this is all copyright music. And I was like, oh gosh, yeah. Even though the radio station was playing it, I was broadcasting it. So I had to take down my radio interview. And then when we tried to put it back up, the chat was gone. So people were like, where's the chat? And it just was like, all right, I'll just do it another time. How about that? Yeah. So I had to do that. I had to take down, and it was such a great interview, and it was so interesting about tarot. So I'll probably put that up on my Patreon, because it's the only place I can do it without having to get licensed for everything. So that'll be the deal there. Red Like Wine, good to see you. Gosh, people are like, thanks for being here, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it does suck, Stevie33. It was a really interesting, and I'll share with some of you who weren't there. I did a live radio interview in the UK, and it was a small channel. I want to say it was in Cheltenham, Berkshire. And I'll probably have that wrong, but it was really, really fun. Anyway, yeah. It was really fun, and I got to do some tarot readings with my new deck for some of the people who phoned in, so it was really fun. Hi, Diana, good to see you. And I'm just kind of greeting people. I'm still in the beginning stages of Buckinghamshire. Thank you, Crystal Silverheart, appreciate that. Yeah, and it was really fun. And I've got a lot of radio coming up. I've got a lot of live radio coming up for my new deck. And all of that is on my website under, I think it's torihartman.com/events. So if you look up the events on my website, you'll see the different places I'm going to be. And I just added, if you're in London, I just added a full day at the College of Psychic Studies. Can you stand it? Really, it's the College of Psychic Studies. And what's cool about it is, check this out. Conan Doyle, and you know who that is. If you don't, look him up. You know, Sherlock Holmes. Anyway, he was one of the original patrons of the College of Psychic Studies. So the college was actually founded by some of the very prominent gentlemen of England at the time, and it was endowed, Conan Doyle, a bunch of other very wealthy British men left their fortunes to the College of Psychic Studies, which I think forgive me, I think it's in West Kensington, but you can look it up. It is for real. I'm not kidding. And what's really cool about it is a lot of it is developing your intuition and some of the esoteric arts. It's not black magic. It's not witchcraft for people who are freaking out. It's not that. So, but what's interesting about it is that was where, I always yawn. I always yawn when I'm taught, like, I get energetic hits and stuff. That was where I first understood and accepted the fact that I was fascinated with mysteries and crime. And more importantly, that was, hi, sweet boy. Look who comes up. Look who's coming up. You want to say hi to everybody. You don't want to say hi to me. So look this way. I know. He just had a greenie. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move your nose. There we go, buddy. Okay. He's like, I want to go look outside. Okay. You just look outside. So it wouldn't be a lot. He just sat on me. Oh, he's big. So it wouldn't be alive if Gavin didn't show up, right? So anyway, that was where I first, in the College of Psychic Studies, that was where I first discovered that there was a connection between the esoteric arts and between the idea of crime and mystery solving. And part of it is that I don't know about you all, but I have never met a police officer, and a detective in particular, who doesn't have some kind of connection to their intuition, and they call it instinct, right? But it's very powerful of, like, how do they close some of these crimes? I mean, how do they know to turn down a particular street on a particular day? And they call it luck, and I call it some of this, just a little bit. And I think in this life, we really, is it Sir Arthur Conan? No, thank you. Yeah. Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, I know. Planet Sleaze. He is a beautiful sugar pie, isn't he? So I know. You know what? He could have his own channel. I'm not kidding. He could have his, Thanks, Olive. I appreciate it. So what we're going to do tonight, and I part of why I wanted to do this live is because I had a really interesting post from a young man, and I find that sometimes culturally, not everybody, but sometimes culturally, when there is drug use in a family or there's issues in the family, those people hey, Emily, glad you made it, tend to get raised by their grandparents. And what I've noticed is that I had a comment from somebody who said that, my grandmother raised me. Why are you blaming mothers? Why are you putting the blame on mothers? They're doing the best they can. And I started to think about it, and I realized that part of this is that not that we're blaming anyone. And I think this is culturally also where we're at, where it's like, the minute you say something that is not in line with what everybody in the room is thinking, there'll be one person who goes, I don't agree. And then 7 people then stand up to support them in their disagreeing. Do you notice that? All of a sudden it becomes this, like, one person goes, I don't agree. And it's easy to say to one person, you know what, I get that. But when 7 people start then saying, you need to really, like, acknowledge that person. And it's like, well, wait a minute. They're having the issue. And this goes to how we relate to the issue is the issue. So when everybody in the room starts saying, you need to listen to that one person, it's like, okay, I heard them. Sorry, Gavin's got things to do. When everybody starts, it's like that wave, right? It's kind of like we have to be really aware of supporting someone's right to say something, and at the same time, speaking for them and attacking others on their behalf, if that makes sense. I think some of you get that, because it's the kind of thing of, like, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. And remember when we were little? All right, we're gonna talk about Cindy Watts, I promise. But when we were little, and you guys remember this, so what happened? And, you'd say, well, Jerry was doing that. Oh, so if Jerry jumped off a bridge, you would too? Like, it's like that kind of like, oh, right, but here's what I want to say. The idea is that we've become a society of lemmings. Like, we're going to go this way and fall off the ridge with that one. Oh, wait a minute. This is the better way to be. So I'm going to go this way. And what happens is we consistently forget who we are. And that's when, and I know some of you heard me talk about this the other day, that's when we start taking someone else's pulse to see how we feel. And it really becomes, we can't be ourselves. We have to be who other people want us to be to feel safe. So let's start up with, I know I'm drinking water. I'm so thirsty, you guys. So let's begin with the idea. I'm going to begin with Cindy Watts. And it's not so much that, because I've got to tell you, I feel very much that while the case itself is complete, I feel that there's always things for us to keep in mind and understand. And I think that what the Watts case did for us is it really opened up a view into the world that, and some people are like, why that case? There's so many people there. And I'm like, because it had so many different perspectives and it hit so many of us. And one of the things that I think happened, and going back to this post that I got, it said, why are you blaming the grandfather? I was able to say, well, or the grandmother, why are you blaming the mother? My grandmother raised me. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm not blaming anybody. And I think there's this misnomer that if you try to understand something and you cross over into the line that could even be sounded just this much like blame, it's completely inappropriate. But you see, in order for us to understand something, we have to have that bigger conversation. We have to include things like, oh, let's talk about Cindy Watts. Oh, let's talk about this. And people go, oh, I can't believe you'd say that. And they get so indignant when they don't even know what is going on. They don't even know. They just want to be heard. So let's talk about that. So I was thinking again about Cindy Watts, and I red like wine, thank you, blew my color. I know I've got like this blue going on in my nails. I fell in love with the new metallics. OPI's doing them, and I'm like, but let's talk about Cindy Watts for a minute, because I was re-looking at some of the stuff, right? And Red Like Wine said something I just want to see. It's always interesting to me who someone identifies, such as though identifying with Cindy Watts. Now, I think that, I want to say, and Pamela's echoing a similar sentiment. One of the things I want to say before I even get into this conversation is, let's enter into the conversation for one moment of when we look from Cindy Watts' perspective, we can see how diminished her capacity for life is. And if you bear with me while I just explain that, before we start getting crazy about her, let's just look at the fact that we all agree. I mean, let's say this agreement that, it was odd. Her behavior, let's just say for lack of a better word right now, it was odd, all right? And it attracted a lot of attention that I don't know that she wanted, okay? I think that there was this woman, and when I looked at her again energetically, and I pulled a card to see if I could see anything, and I was like, no, I'm not looking at the cards, because I didn't want to get into it in that way. I wanted to just kind of step into energetically how I felt around her. So how I felt is I just feel this pit in my stomach of like kind of an anger. But then when I was looking at her, I was really getting the idea that she could not process the fact that her son did this. And there was a really interesting quote I found, and it was one of the things that she talked about. And again, I want to be very clear that I don't want this to be a Cindy Watts bashing. I want this to be looking into what our visceral response was to her. In other words, how did we go from, the idea of her saying, "We forgive you, son." Well, when I thought about that later, I mean, of course, we're like, I don't know about you, but I was like, what? So, In God We Trust. Thank you so much. Are you familiar with the book Trapped in the Mirror about adult children of narcissists? I see Cindy Watch in much of it. Yes, I do want to say that, I do kind of, thank you for the super chat. And I want to acknowledge that I did a lot of studying in my 20s and 30s on adult children of alcoholics. And I think that when we look at alcoholism, we can look at it as a spiritual disease. I think we can look at, for me, what I look at, and I don't like to use terminology like this, you know this, but I'm going to say this. I look at narcissism as a deprivation of care. So when I think of a deprivation of care, just like alcoholism is a spiritual deprivation, it's an emptiness there. Narcissism is an emptiness of care, which means that because they weren't cared for or taught how to care for themselves, they overcompensate with everything having to be about survival. So there's and when I talk about the idea of that spectrum, we all are narcissists. We have to be for survival. But I think we've taken it to such a degree, right? Emily's like she's not taking any prisoners, man. She's like, we have to look at it as such a degree that, we, meaning myself, really, I don't want to do the spiritual bypass. And what a spiritual bypass to me is, well, that person's a narcissist, and just kind of like move it over that way, and I'm not. And the thing is that when I look at the humanity of a person and I see myself in it, then I can grow. When I look at it as, oh, that person's sick and I'm not, then I'm taking a moral superiority position. And for me, it's more about this woman in that moment. I suddenly saw Cindy Watts in a whole different light when what I do, guys, is I stand in there. Like I stand there at the podium, right? Yes, it is a spiritual malady. And I think when we look at it that way, and by the way, so is when we look at domestic abuse, it's also a spiritual malady, and I'm going to talk about that. But when I saw Cindy Watts standing at the podium, and literally she turns to her son who does not look at her. I know some people said he cried. I didn't see a tear coming out of that face until he got sentenced, but maybe I'm seeing the wrong thing. But when she turned to him and said, "We forgive you, son," what I felt is that she was like jumping the shark, so to speak, right? She was kind of like going, "We want you to know that we've forgiven you for killing our grandchildren, and we're going to be in the place of forgiveness." Well, the problem with that is that because you're the mom, you can't necessarily say that in that moment. And bear with me. I once had a student, right? And I want to share, how it's Tori's story time. This ties into everything that I'm talking about. Promise this is about Cindy Watts. So I once had a student, and she had said, what had she done? She had been messaging me a lot about her personal card readings, right? And the problem is when I'm teaching a class, I like the students to come in and we share with each other what's going on, right? So that I can then say, oh, if you're reading it this way, this is this is what's going on energetically, and do you see that? And, interacting. So what happened was she was doing this, but somebody else did it, right? And I had forgotten that this student was doing it. And somebody else did it. And finally, I just sent out an email. I think it was like 2 or 3 other people did it. If somebody did it and then other people. So what happened was I sent out a general email to everybody. It was very generic. That said, hey, guys, I want you to know I'm really interested in what all of you are saying. However, I can't answer your personal card readings because it would take me hours and hours and hours. And I just don't have that kind of time. But if you want to bring up some of these questions in class, I'm really happy to do it. Well, she went into an extreme upset and said, how dare you humiliate me in front of the group? I didn't mention her name at all. And there were other people doing it. And she said, you're doing this and you're doing that. And I wrote her back and said, I really have to say to you that I'm really sorry you're seeing that because that's not my intention. Here's what happened on my side. And I don't see it that way. And she then sent me another note saying how upset she was, how much upset she was with my behavior. Now, she particularly called out my behavior, and I messaged her back and said, may I suggest that you speak to other people about your upset with me so that you can get an unbiased perspective. Because once you bring me into the problem, then I can't support you, because what happens is no matter what, you have to be right. Like, I can't say, well, you're not seeing it right now, because then I'm the punishing parent, right? So I said, talk to somebody else about it and see what is coming up for you, like how you relate to the issue is the issue. So she came back about a week later and said, thank you. I'm so glad you said that, because I really recognized that I was acting out something that I had to get to the bottom of. And I was relating to this as, and she discussed it, what it was relating to her as. And by the way, she's like one of my dearest friends now, years later. But the point I'm making is that sometimes we can't be the ones that have that discussion with someone, because it would completely invalidate them. It's like the cliche, right words, wrong person. So it's kind of like, I have a friend who tells her daughter, don't do this, and then her daughter will call me and go, what should I do? And I go, well, I think you shouldn't do, and she'll go, oh, okay. And then my friend will call me and go, I've been telling her that for 6 months. I said, it's all in who's telling you. I said, so next time you want to tell your daughter something, just tell me and then I'll tell her. And she started laughing and she's like, yeah, right words, wrong person. And sometimes we can't get that across. So what I want to say about that is, when we look at Cindy Watts, when we look at her turning around and saying, we forgive you, son, I really felt in that moment, it was like, if you can imagine, and I've seen this before, I know you have, when we see sentencing where, the person who's found God, so to speak, they turn around and they go, we want you to know that we forgive you, right? Well, the problem is that Cindy Watts comes across very disingenuous. And unfortunately, and I'm not saying she is or isn't, that's how she presents, right? Because she presents as disingenuous, I saw it as, what are you, forgiving a murderer who killed your grandchildren and disrespected his wife? I mean, not even to mention. And so I went into this like upset over it. But when I suddenly pulled it back and went, wait, it's the right words from the wrong person, it was more something that if the Rushek family said that, it would have been much more, but they couldn't in the moment. I mean, that was just like too heinous. But what I'm trying to say is, I think at the end of the day, you can't, you really can't know what her intention was. I think that I can only know my reaction or my response to her was not a good one. Do you know what I'm saying, everybody? Like, I wasn't responding well to her, right? Every interview with her was just more of like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And are you kidding me? Now, here's the thing. I'm going to say a psychiatrist, psychologist, an expert can go label her. They can say she's a narcissist and whatever, right? And she probably is. I don't know. I actually kind of do have my own sense of it. But again, I'm not the expert. But here's what I am the expert in. I am the expert in my own response to how someone behaves. Isn't that true for you? Think about that for a minute. How many of you really say, you know what? I am the expert in my own response. I know what I'm responding as. But here's the thing. The moment I label it narcissism, I then dilute the value of my own feelings. That's why I don't use buzzwords. Because the minute I turn around and say, that person's a narcissist, I'm not really telling you what my response is to that person, right? So if you really think about it, I'm getting truth bumps, guys, okay? Truth bumps, because think of it this way. The only way we can have any kind of upset towards Cindy Watts is because we relate to her on some level, and the relating to her can be that it pisses us off, it's disgusting, whatever that feeling is. And I think I'm just going to jump in because, let's see, Angie said something. It's hard for you to believe that there are bad people out there. Cindy Watts is a bad person, and she poisoned her family with her negativity. And I think Lauren just said it, hurt people hurt people. And Angie, I think that, I think that there are mean people like Cindy. I'm not sure that, and I don't know yet. I may label her bad at some point, but I don't know right now how I feel about her. And I'm totally honoring that if you feel she's bad, this is a bad person. The thing I want to say about that is, one more time, I'm honoring your take on it, right? That doesn't mean that anybody else's take is wrong. It just means that, oh, I think that's a bad person. Right on. I kind of look at her as really unable to comprehend or process that her son did this. And I think that she, on some level, has no culpability. She's not allowing herself to say, oh my God, look what happened, and I did play a part. And that's the sad part. Because I'm going to tell you something, and I said this in another video, but then I didn't post it because it was like kind of strong. I think that I'm going to let's look at two moms here, the tale of two moms. Remember the tale of two Chris's? Let's look at the Rusheks. Let's look at Sandy and Cindy. When we look at Sandy, I'm going to tell you, I absolutely feel that if she felt that Cindy was not complicit in this, she would have immediately forgiven her. It would have come up in the conversations. They would have been invited to the funeral. I think that when we look at it that way, we really have to say that, the truth is that I just don't think that Cindy Watts has any capacity here or here to really see anything outside of her own feelings, which completely crowded her. Now, when I say her own feelings, I think it had to do with the shame and humiliation that she probably was experiencing. I know for me, if I was in that position, I would feel such shame and humiliation, but I also know I would come out and say to y'all, I'd be like, you know what? I don't even know how to process that my own son could do this. I don't even know, because I don't know what I did to that, because I know that something I've done had to contribute. He was always good, but I don't know what I'm doing. Now, see, that's the difference between that and he was always a good boy. And the thing that she doesn't understand is that her fear, and this is what I'm really picking up, everybody, no, she didn't show shame. What she showed was disrespect, disgust, anger. But you see, all of that was masking shame, Jess. And I think that's really the key. And I think that, and I've seen this a lot, we manipulate when we're afraid to tell the truth. I mean, that's been my biggest thing. And that's like, there's a card in my Chakra Wisdom Oracle that's the trickery card. And I say, we manipulate when we're afraid to tell the truth. And that's what happens, is that, she was trying to manipulate everyone else into thinking that she was doing something so that she just didn't understand, and it couldn't be her son. And what she was trying to do was trying to manipulate us all into thinking that it was Shanann one more time. You see, I think she had that. Think about it this way. And I think I'm going to use a generic thing. Please remember, if you use the president's name at all, you're going to be banned. So don't do it. Don't use his name. But I'm not going to use his name because, But it's like this. If you have an agenda of hating a certain person, it doesn't matter if they come up with the most brilliant idea in the world. Your need, your agenda to hate that person is bigger than anything they say. So her agenda of hating Shanann was proven right inside of her. That woman did this to my son. So as a result, internally, she was churning with that the whole time. So when we look at her and we look at Cindy, there was no way for Cindy to take any responsibility or say, how could this happen? She was thinking the whole time, I told you that girl was bad. Told you this woman was no good. And you see when she was hiding that, like inside, and if you look at how she was doing the anguish, it was like, I knew it. Think about this. I knew that woman was no good. She wasn't looking at it as, your son just murdered 3 people, and pretty heinously, I might add, and 3 of them were children, 1 unborn. She couldn't see that because her hatred for her rival was so great. Now it was buried. All right. I think Tori is very generous regarding Cindy. I think it's kind of, See, what I'm trying to say is that internally, what I was picking up is that if Cindy didn't have the hatred towards Shanann, she would have been a lot more, think about this, if she just like loved her daughter-in-law, she'd have been like, oh my God, how could my son do this? And we lost our family. And she and the Rusheks would have all been in pain together. But you see, it is the judge. I love that somebody just said, Tim said Cindy was very judgmental, but let's look at it one step further, Tim, which I agree with you on. What if we dive under that wave of judgmental, what is it really doing? Because you see, when we judge others, right, we're really saying that we're superior to them. So she was very much trying to prove the whole time that she was better than Shanann, but at what cost? See, I don't think Cindy can separate out. I don't think she's capable of separating out the fact that she was absolutely cruel, so cruel to Shanann. I don't think she has that capacity, but here's the difference between her and you and me, and Tim, I'm including you in this conversation because I think it's great. I think that you and I would be able to separate out in dialogue like we're doing right now. Well, wait a minute. If I had an intention to hate someone and that was my sole purpose is to just resist everything they say to me, then it doesn't matter what they do. But if you and I are talking and I go, you know, Tim, you might have this little bit of resistance going on about this person. And do you really think that's a bad thing what they're deciding? You'd go, oh yeah, you're right. There might be that going on, but that's because we are people that won't co-sign each other's bullshit. Because you see, Cindy set up her life where everybody co-signs her BS and she gets to look like a good person. Does that make sense? So let me just go, yes, dot to dot. I'm glad you're saying this because I picked up the word Ronnie, so I looked over here. Dot to dot said, does anyone remember Ronnie Watts when he said that they've lost their beloved daughter-in-law? I thought that was so insulting to the family after all they'd had said negatively toward her. Now, here's the funny thing. I think that at some level, I think Ronnie really was trying to, see, here's the thing you have to understand. He didn't have the same agenda as his wife. His agenda was to support his wife. His wife's agenda was to hate Shanann. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. What our agenda is always going to run how we relate to people. So if our agenda is, I hate that person, then we are always going to be, I don't like what that person's doing, even if it's like saving children, okay? We are never gonna like it because we're going to put the spin on it that's negative. And it's now, if we look at what Ronnie Watts' agenda was, it was to support his wife. This is a man that was trying to be a good husband. Now, we know that Chris Watts was just an empty shell of mirroring his father and trying to be that. He was trying to be a good husband. And he succeeded in the facade. He did for a long time. But again, what he did slowly is he pulled the I'm going to talk about Shanann in a minute, but let me just take a sip of water. Let me just see if anybody. Why is it? Let's see. Why is the lady like that? What kind of childhood did she have? Okay, I'm really glad Jessica just brought this up. Really great. And by the way, I just want to do a shout out to Emily and Jessica, are my moderators, and they're like, they're swooping down. Okay, they are just like on it. Okay. I never got past blaming Cindy Watts. Gail Howard said, it's been the number one question. I think we all kind of feel that a little bit about Cindy Watts. Yeah. Valerie, you're so funny. Oh my gosh, she has fries for him. We had sweet potato fries today, me and Gavin. He loves French fries. Let's see. She didn't. Oh my gosh, thank you, Cayenne Daniels. Thank you. Is it Cayenne? Cayenne. What a great word. What a great name. Wow, that's powerful. Kyan, like Ryan, only Cayenne. Whoa, so cool. Didn't even attend his son's wedding or go to the birthday party. Okay. So we have to look again at agendas, right? And this is our hidden agenda. And this is why we get caught up in bad relationships, in bad situations, because we can't let go of our agenda. Now, I want to say in Cindy Watts' case, I don't think she was going to go to the funeral because she absolutely couldn't face the Rusheks. That was just like, I don't even think she was invited. So, and I hope not. Unlike the wedding that she didn't attend, which she should have gone to. Okay. The other thing I want to just remind everybody of, if you like this video, you like the work I do, please give it a thumbs up and share. Just jump on the share button, let people know what we're talking about, because it really helps. And it's exhausting as a creator to do what we're doing. And believe it or not, it's like, oh my gosh, So please remember to like and to support the channel by referring it to other people and going, hey, you got to watch this or whatever. So there you go. Okay. Was she invited? I didn't know that. Okay, cool. Thank you. I don't know this, that's what I think, Tim. I think that Cindy Watts, what she looked like to me, and I'm going to have Lara on. Lara and I are going to talk about her. Thank you. Lara and I are going to talk about Cindy Watts' face, but I am going to say that I feel that there's a lot of anguish in Cindy Watts because she doesn't recognize her agenda. Once you recognize your agenda, you can let it go and live. You cannot live a full life as long as you have a hidden agenda or a hidden agreement, which is a different course. But you have to recognize that the hidden agenda is, in Cindy Watts' case, it was her hidden agenda. Number one in this situation is to get rid of Shanann, because Shanann, in her world, she hated her so much. And I don't think she is a toxic female, all right? And she's also what I want to call, Cindy, she's also what I like to call a disempowered female. But Ronnie is a disempowered male. Now, his whole thing is his agenda is to make his wife happy. Happy wife, happy life, right? So his agenda is that. And as a result, even if he doesn't want to be mad at Shanann, even if he didn't, he doesn't have anything really against her, he's got to put that front up and, support his wife. Now, here's the thing. When I look at people who have the isms, alcoholism, I want to say not so much drugs, but because I don't know the isms there, but I'm going to use alcoholism as an example. They're trying to shut their feelings down because they're feeling too much. So typically, alcoholics, and drug addicts too, cocaine particularly, you're trying to be involved. You're trying to get yourself involved. And I think that Ronnie Watts just was supporting his wife. Now, let's go back to, because I think that was his agenda. And I really think he loved his son. And I really think he was concerned about the damage his wife did to his son. And I think that on a certain level, I think he really did love Shanann. And I think that he had to hide it. and he had to defend his wife. And that was just the way that rolled. We can call him whatever we want. We can say whatever we want about it. But at the end of the day, that was his whole thing. Let's see, is hidden agenda or denial? I think it's just denial. Actually, there's a difference between hidden agenda and denial. Okay, denial implies that you're aware of it. You're denying it's true. I'm absolutely denying that. There is a consciousness that you are denying it. A hidden agenda is I've got to make this happen at all costs. Denial is you just don't want to see it. So if you look at the difference, like a hidden agenda is I'm going to resist this person no matter what. No matter what happens in the world, I am going to resist that. That's a definite like agenda. So what happens is even whatever that person does, even if it's good, you're going to go, that's an asshole, right? But denial is something entirely different. It's denying that something that you think is good, right, is actually not good. It's a denial of things that are in your own life. So they are very different. So I want to just say an agenda means, and let's look at the word agenda, all right? Let's just look at that word. I'm so thirsty. Okay, agenda is, imagine your agenda book, right? They call it in Britain your diary, but here we call it a schedule. So if you look at your schedule, that's an agenda. These things have to get done. So when someone has an agenda, we have to look at what the outcome is. So in Cindy's case, she is in resist, right? So she's in, I'm going to resist her no matter what. I want to get rid of her. So anything she did was following that agenda. Now, when you spot someone's agenda, right, you're going to be able to see everything they did as being understandable under that agenda. So bear with me. Therefore, when we look at Cindy and we say her agenda was to get rid of her rival, I mean, really, that was her agenda. So when looking at all of the events now, if we go back and we plug in her agenda at every moment where she was destroyed, when she was like, I don't understand why he pleaded guilty. That was like the craziest conversation. Remember that? She was like, I don't know. I would have not pleaded. I mean, they're never going to kill him in Colorado. And it's like, what? It's like, it just seemed so off. But if you look at her agenda as she did it to my son, then it makes perfect sense, right? Doesn't that exactly? If you look at someone's agenda, then you can see that in their mind, everything's rational. That's not denial. That's their agenda. It really comes down to what we're really talking about. Does that make sense to everybody? I want to make sure that I'm like, right. Denying is a coping mechanism for survival. Thank you for saying that. Let me see. Lauren said that. Thank you, because it is. But you see, Cindy wasn't surviving. She was attacking. Very different. And when you have an agenda, you are on the offense. When you are denying, you're in defense. So let's look at Shanann now. Shanann actually was more in denial because she didn't have an agenda. Her agenda really was to take care of her children, protect them, right? Because we could see that in everything she did, and to love her husband. So those were her agendas. Very simple to see, because now we can see every action she was taking was to save her marriage. That was her agenda, because she had a great relationship in her world. But her denial was that it wasn't what she was seeing. And she knew it, but she couldn't grasp it because of her agenda. And it all was working together for Shanann. Now, and that way, if we start to look at crimes based on agenda, and I'll talk about that in a moment, if we look at it that way, based on an agenda, then we can see how full of shit people are. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it, right? We can see that they're full of shiitake, lot of shidiggity, you know what I'm saying. There's a lot of that going on if we see an agenda. Now, that goes to what we're seeing in the world as well. If my agenda is to get rid of that person, it doesn't matter that I'm letting my house burn. I'm more concerned about getting rid of that person. So when you look at it that way, you can see it's a whole different world. Shiitake mushrooms. That's right. That's perfect. I love that. So let me just see. I know we all have agendas. I'm just trying to understand mine, or is it just a purpose and not an agenda? Okay, here's what happens with agendas. I'll talk about that. Thank you, Hot Pink Jalapenos. I really appreciate that, because a personal agenda is different than a pattern, okay? A personal agenda is, I'm going to make something work no matter what, even if it destroys me. That is a personal agenda. Now, it's also, I'm going to follow through on what I say I'm doing. So let's stay with Cindy Watts for a minute, because I think it'll start to become more, and I'm trying to describe it in a way that will make sense, and I think as I go forward, it'll make sense. So when we look at, let's go to Cindy Watts for a minute. And when we look at her agenda being to get rid of Shanann, let's back up to what is underneath that. Why would someone have that kind of agenda, right? How about that for a question? So then you can begin to understand if, I do agree that that he was trying to get rid of, itchy palm. It's coming. Jojo! Jojo, you're the best. Thank you so much for the super chat. It makes such a difference. I got to tell you, it's like I know, right? Jojo's the bomb diggity, because the thing that happens with super chats and with all that stuff is it affords us, at least it does with me, more time to do this work than to do the other work I'm supposed to be doing. Okay. My blood boils extreme when I think of Cindy saying, I thought he had finally seen the light. Yeah. See, when you look at that now, I want you to breathe on that, because I thought he had finally seen the light is such, when we look at it, it's such a hateful thing to say. It's hateful, right? However, when you look at it as her agenda, she's getting what she wants. And so to her, she can't understand why everybody isn't seeing that she's winning. She's winning. It's like, this is great, you guys. He's finally seeing the light. I've been saying this for years. She's missing the fact that her son actually murdered her daughter-in-law, and the fact that she may have a part in it. Now, here's something I want to say. I absolutely feel, and this is my own thing, I think the denial is that Cindy absolutely cannot see that she has a part in any of that, because for her, her agenda is, well, wait a minute, this is, he finally saw the light. Think about it this way. And he was finally going to be free of her. Cindy? Not so much. So what I'm trying to say to you all is this, that Cindy's agenda was to get rid of Shanann, to drive her crazy. So what do you think Nutgate was about? And then Cindy calls Chris's best friend and says, oh, it was about chocolate. I have no idea what she's talking about. See, the reason Cindy, let's go to the reasoning. The reason Cindy didn't think there was anything wrong about lying or doing that is because it was part of her agenda, which is to save her son from the evil witch. Now I'm going to tell you something. Here it comes. She saw in Shanann herself. And therefore, she was trying to kill herself. She was trying to get herself out of his life, but she will never say that because she thinks that Shanann replaced her. So she had to kill the enemy. Unfortunately, she instilled in Chris such a hate for her that he killed her by killing Shanann. I hope this is making sense. Anybody get this? Okay. It is scary. Now, this is why I've started doing this. Because you see, when people talk about domestic violence, I kind of go, okay, but what about domestic peace and domestic harmony? Why don't we see into those worlds? Why are we watching the Kardashians snipe at each other instead of saying, what's healthy? And we don't know. We don't know because we are helpless to some of these things that we call agendas in this lifetime, right? So I'm getting truth bumps, you guys. So if you totally get this, you can begin to connect the dots in a way that goes, oh my God, like it. And how many of you feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like my head's gonna explode when I heard that? Like, does that make sense? Right? You feel like, oh my gosh. Okay. Emily, I'm so glad you said that. How can we help ourselves? Okay. So this is an opportunity for me to just tell you a little of my story in that, which is that I recognized all this and I learned all this after my near-death experience and after all the fables from chakra wisdom started coming to me. When I started reading those fables, I started to go, wait a minute, these are like Spoon River Anthology. Now, if you don't know what it is, look it up. Spoon River Anthology. It was a Broadway show. It was also a theater piece, all monologues from dead people telling about their life. And so for me, that's what the original fables from Chakra Wisdom were. They weren't like evil. They weren't anything like that. And what happened was I started to recognize the patterns that were in this also were patterns within us. So the patterns within us became first chakra, second chakra. And what are chakra? There's 7 energy centers in our body. We all have them. No one is privy to more information than somebody else. We all have the ability to learn about the energy within our body and shift it. So as I'm sharing this information with you, this is stuff that you're like going, wait a minute, how did you connect that? Well, I connected it through the study of this, and that's how I learned it. Now, what I recognize, and bear with me because I'm not trying to sell a book here. That's not what I'm trying to do. Although I think it's really incredible work. I didn't do what I wish I did because I just took dictation of the fables. I actually developed the stuff around it, but not the fables themselves. Here's the deal with it. When I started recognizing that there were connections that we weren't seeing, okay, there were connections of lack of safety. So for example, I'm going to give you a little bit of information. I want to just see. I feel Cindy was upset she couldn't control Chris when he left and married Shanann. Yes, that's true. And I'm glad you're saying that, Maria, because I think that is the outward appearance, right? That's what we would call in psychology or whatever. That would be that. But what we're looking at is, what if we go to a place that's beyond our current comprehension? I'm going to share something with you. Ready for a story? This relates. Okay. So when the settlers came over to the New World, America, they came on ships, right? So here's the deal. The Indians did not see the ships. They couldn't comprehend it. They had no idea there was such a thing as something that would float on the water. So they didn't understand. All they saw were these settlers walking out of the water, and it scared them. They had no idea that they were coming from ships because, you see, you cannot see what you don't know is possible. You can't see it. So when I talk about something outside of your frame of reference, these things that we're talking about is not in our everyday conversation. And so when I was teaching the cards and I was teaching chakra wisdom, I was teaching this information and sharing it with such a small community, because there are people that are like, no, I don't believe in cards. I don't believe in that stuff. But so I finally just said, you know what, F it. I'm just going to share what I know from this and not call it cards. I'm not going to call it that because I felt the information is so valuable. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So in other words, if I call it cards or I call it something else, there'll be people who, forgive me for saying it, start like going, that's the devil. And it's like, no, this is in many ways what we are entitled to see. This is all within us. So it wasn't until the wise man, if you will, of the Indian tribe talked, the shaman, right? He spoke to the head guy, right, of the settlers, and he explained to the Indian chief what a ship was, and they explained it. And all of a sudden, the Indian shaman, wise man, was able to see the ship because he understood what it did, what it was, and then everybody else saw it. Now, this is the key to all of this, right? So what I'm saying to you is, when we use buzzwords and terminology like this, well, Cindy was, she hated Shanann. She was jealous of her. She tried to destroy her. Her son killed her, and she was trying to get Chris back. We can all understand that, like, here, right? That's a brain thing. But what about the ships on the water? Like, we're not seeing something because we're all affected by this, right? We're all kind of going, she's crazy, but there's something that she's saying. There's something she's doing that we're going, it still doesn't compute. It still doesn't feel as simple as, oh, she hates Shanann. It doesn't compute on some level. So I'm just going to take a peek and see what people are saying. Okay. Yes, Chris Watts said in his interviews that he and Shanann took good care of each other. He killed Shanann out of revenge for Cindy. I don't know. Yes. Okay, so let me see. Chris tortured the bad. Oh, right. Emily, how come you're quoting me back to me and being so brilliant? Oh my God. I don't, half the time, I'll tell you what, I used to be teaching and I'd be like talking about something and somebody would say, well, when you said this, I'd be like, I did? And they go, yeah. I go, oh, that's really good. Okay. And I learned, by the way, just as much from the people I have the honor of teaching stuff to as I get to share with them. Let's see. Okay. Oh, Chris tortured the bad girl, Cindy, North Korea, and killed the good girl. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to explain that because that's really good, Emily. Okay. I talked about in the last video, when we last left our heroine, in the last video, I talked about Patrick Frazee and how Frazee tortured the bad girl, but he killed the good girl. Now, he tortured the girl that was most weak, that had always been in second place, that never really got what she wanted, but he killed Kelsey because she was the good girl who had achieved things. If we look at Chris Watts, it's the same pattern of torturing the girl who's less than, but murdering the good girl. And I'm going to share with you how that occurs energetically because that's the key to this. That's the whole key, okay? You know what? I can't even drink water well. I'm telling you right now. Okay, let's see. Oh, good. Thank you for getting these people. Yeah. Alana, just ban that person. That's totally good. You guys are like, whoa, go get him, Wild Irish. She's like stomping him out. All right. So let's talk about, let's now see, here's the thing that's really, really difficult. When you start telling people mind-blowing stuff, there are going to be people who are almost rabid that it's their agenda to not hear it, because their agenda is such that if you shake that tree at all, you're going to destroy the root. And that's not true. You see, the sicker someone is, the more unable they will be to see the things I'm saying to you. So bear me out on this. Okay, let me just, I just want to see where you guys are a little bit, because then I can go back to bad girl and good girl. I hate and I don't hate anyone, Casey Anthony. Exactly. Now, ooh, okay. Cindy's a pageant mom. I didn't know that. Okay. I know Emily's got it going on. We'll all be her moderators pretty soon. Chris is pretending that he was enraged about Shannon, but that's a lie. People said that he was afraid of and was trying to keep. In reality, it was Cindy he was afraid of and wanted to keep the illusion. Okay, so let's go to this for a minute. I don't know if you saw the wedding photos, and a lot of people gave me grief because I said he looked like a little boy in big boy clothes, right? It's like putting a 7-year-old in a suit for a 25-year-old, okay? And people were like, well, he was chunky then. I said, no, did you see those cuffs? He didn't even have his cuffs taken up on the suit. I mean, this was like somebody said, here, borrow this, you know? And I'm talking about Chris Watts at the wedding. This was like the most bizarre thing. And everywhere I looked in Chris Watts' eyes, I could see how sad he was that his own family wasn't there. And I think he saw in Shanann a solution to getting away from a life he didn't want, which was being planned for him by his mother. And I really think that this mother, now let's talk about this now without blamey, right? I don't want to be blamey. But what I do want to do is, you know what? I don't want like flowers growing out of the side of my head. So I'm just going to move that. I'm like going, okay. But what I think what he was doing was Chris was trying to be a grown-up in a boy's body. I don't think he ever got a chance to grow up. I don't think he ever moved past the idea of someone else doing things for him. And I think that he was mimicking what he thought was normal. But I think his mother, now here's the point. This is a mother that fell in love with her son. Now, remember I said to you, and she was deeply in love with him. She gave up her own soul to love him. Now, remember I talked good girl, bad girl. Well, let's swap that. Bad girl, good girl. A woman never, ever falls in love with a man. If she does, it is very dangerous. A woman can only fall in love with a little boy, because what do we do as women when we fall in love? We take care, we nurture, we just smother. We can, that's when we call them 7 times a day to see if they, forgot something from home. That's taking care of. And it's very normal for a grown woman to fall in love with her son, not as a sexual thing, but as I'm going to take care of this little boy for a while. And then it comes to a certain point where she starts to regain herself. Now, and then she falls in love with herself again. This is very important. There's a very important separation that has to happen here. I don't see that Chris ever rebelled. What I did see is she never let him rebel, and therefore the separation between them never happened. Most men that I've seen in my practice when I was doing readings that had severe damage, it always happened between the ages of 7 and 12. And I say 7 and 12 because I'm just saying that was the age that something happened. Their mother died, somebody moved away, and they never learned how to cope with their feelings. Because that was the age that a woman or a guy starts saying to the little boy, come on, man up, suck it up, stop crying, So good girl, bad girl. So Cindy Watts was so in love with her son that it even crowded her husband out. Sorry about that, you guys. I don't know, whatever. But it even crowded her husband out of that conversation. Now, when I say a woman should never fall in love with a man, a woman falls in love with herself, and then she shares that love with a man. And that is the most alluring, healthy, sexy thing a woman can be for a man, is completely in love with herself. Because when she falls in love with a man, she has disempowered herself. And that's when I was talking about bad girls, that's when she becomes less than the man. And a man senses it and he just wants to get away from me. You ever had a guy say, could you please just move away? It's because you've disempowered yourself. Or when a man is pulling away, it's because the woman has disempowered herself. Now, even with Shanann, when she was, and of course, I'm not going to blame her. Please don't think that's what's going on. But we see that desperate behavior. And, what happens is that Chris was witnessing that behavior. And it's a trigger for a guy who has had a disempowered mother, or a mother that's incredibly smothering, because she is so in love that the man starts to experience love as crushing and choking and choking, right? And so what did he do? He choked and smothered, because it's like he is so, it's such a trigger. And if you look at Shanann early on, she was never triggering. She was never like needy with Chris. It was quite the other way, right? So when Chris starts hooking up with NK, he's going, wow, she's so independent. She's so this. And guess what? She wasn't. And I'm going to jump out on a line here and say that if Shanann had not been pregnant, because I really feel that that made her extremely vulnerable. I think it put her in a position where, and she was really loving her husband, you know? And I want to say that she loved her husband. She loved her children. She was in love with herself, which we really saw, because that's the level of self-care Shanann had. So I don't care what you think about her. She was really somebody that, and so's Kelsey. Kelsey, what is it? Barrett? She was very much in love with herself. You could see it. But you see, the big thing that a boy is going to do is he's going to ultimately, if he sees a woman displaying mommy traits, he'll freak out. And you have to understand that not only was he getting that freak out from Shanann, because suddenly Shanann was getting less and less and less then. So of course, I don't care what anybody says. I think he sent her that picture with the baby covered, you know, and I think he was trying to torture her, you know, and I think that was going on. So I'm not going to pull any punches about that, you guys. I really am not. But I think when we look at that, then we can really kind of go, what? You know what I'm saying? So we're kind of going, we're looking at this and going, what is going on here? Now, let me back up. And what happens is that when you look at that behavior, right, and you look at the way Shanann reacted, it's perfectly normal. Wouldn't you have responded? I don't know about you, but I would have been like, babe, what's going on? Why don't you want to talk to me? But the more we learn about this dynamic, and Shanann didn't really get the dynamic of her mother-in-law, and that she was starting to fit into the same energy that her mother-in-law was behaving as. So what began to happen, right? Exactly. What was beginning to happen was he had to kill his mother. Now, that's why the mother was so happy. She was like, oh my gosh. But then on the other hand, you know, he saw the light and now he's taken from me. But you see, she's such an idiot. Sorry, I just had to say that, because it's like this kind of stuff where people don't really look at themselves because they don't know how. Why don't we have an agenda class in school? Why aren't we having the idea of energy, sexual energy roles? Like, a woman falls in love with herself and a man falls in love with a woman. You see, if a man falls in love with a woman who shares her love with him, he's enchanted and he takes care of her, right? So what we're going to talk about here is the idea that the masculine and feminine, by the way, can happen in gay relationships too. I really just want to say that it doesn't have to be like, you know, just straight relationships. It's like there's always a feminine energy and there's always a masculine energy, and it can interchange at times, but notice that the healthy one is always taking care of itself, taking care of herself. That's a healthy female. That's why about 5 years old to 7 years old, a mother who's healthier is going to help her son, but she's not going to be the smother anymore. She's not going to be, oh, he needs a nappy. You know, she's going to be starting to talk to him a little bit more mature, because she recognizes she has to come back and fall back in love with herself, or she runs the risk of losing what's going on in the family. Now, the other thing you have to remember, though, I also think Chris was freaking out about a boy, but that's a different conversation. Hold on. One of the other things I want to say, and then I want to take a look at some of the comments y'all are making. One of the other things that I think is really important in this is understanding that the agenda is what made Shanann run the show that way. So her agenda was, I'm going to save my marriage. I want to save my marriage, which makes sense, right? However, if she was my friend I would have gone, dude, hold on. I always go, dude, to my friends. I go, dude, hold on. He's pulling away for some reason. Now, I'm not saying it's not right to talk to him, but I'm saying pull back and let's just wait this out a little bit, because you don't know what's going on. And if he is having an affair, he could be a little dangerous. See, I think, and you will, Tim, you're going to meet somebody. You're like, you're going to meet somebody. I'm not worried about Tim. You got it going on. But what I want to say is that, you see, Shanann's agenda was to save her marriage. And I think at that point too, is that, yes, you want to save your marriage, but you also want to go, you're, as a friend, I would say, I think you're in a little bit of denial here. There's something going on. I get that you want to save your marriage, but you might need to back up a little bit and just see what this is about. And I don't like the fact that he has not stood up for you with his mother and Nutgate. See, this is the kind of conversation that I am very sure that had there been an awareness of this agenda of hating Shanann, then I think her friends would have stood up for her better. And I want to really defend her on this and say that I don't think we know enough about what I'm sharing. Dude, okay, thanks. I don't think we know enough about what I'm sharing with you to be able to say, like, if I saw this happening to a friend of mine, like, Emily, if I saw this happening to you, I'd be like, okay, girl, hold on. I think we need a little bit of a respite here. And her mother, Sandy even said, why don't you stay a little longer? She had an inkling of something, but she couldn't put her finger on it because we haven't had this conversation. It really is up to us as friends, as women, saying, you know what, now you're sinking into the desperate female, and that's going to be unhealthy for you and the baby. Now, that in and of itself would have had all of us go, oh, yeah, wait a minute. Beautiful Plenty, thank you so much. Is it not true that most people do a huge crime? They are highly intelligent. What happened to Chris? Chris is intelligent. He's book smart. He's life dumb. So thank you by the way, thank you for the super chat. Save your marriage. Don't lose yourself. Kim Smith, beautiful, bountiful Plenty. I really like that. Thank you for the super chat, and Kim Smith, thank you for the super chat. And by the way, my buddy Duty Ron, Dutyron, he's a police officer, retired New York detective. I know I've sent you a lot of you over there, and I'm going to answer your question in a second. I think that he's got a new case going on that's very interesting. I encourage you to go check out, because what he does is he really looks at the police. I want to say the police procedure. So it's really cool to listen to him, and I just adore him. So when he's around, he helps out as a mod on my channel, and I do the same on his. See, because I'm going to tell y'all something. I don't buy into the thing of I'm competing with other YouTubers. I don't buy into that. I look at it as there are people I like, and there are people I go, that doesn't interest me. That doesn't mean they're not great. It's just not my jam. It's like me talking about tarot. For some people, it's like, I don't really like that stuff. All right, cool. Then I'll talk about these ideals in a different way, so that you can still get that information and still get that what seems like common sense. But these are things that we have evolved, everyone. We have buzzwords that will run our life right now. And when I say that, I want to come back to these two questions. But when I say that to all of you, I really mean that we're clouding ourselves with an understanding of a buzzword that really means nothing. And I want you to get that to say someone's a narcissist, it's not that it's not valuable. It's just that, what does it mean to you? But when we look at the action, then we can start to see how to respond to it, because we respond with ability. Okay. Instead of just react and just go, that's a narcissist. We kind of go, okay, I get that he or she is, but what do we do about it? All right. So Bountiful Plenty said, is it not true? Most people do huge crimes. They're highly intelligent. What happened to Chris? Okay. So the thing about Chris, and I am going to say save your marriage, but don't lose yourself. Oh, Kim, that's like a t-shirt. That's like, that's your t-shirt. Great idea. Great concept. I mean, simple bumper sticker. And here's the thing. The reason it's really important that we not lose ourselves is because who we are is who that person fell in love with. And once we start displaying behavior that is not who we are, they repel. They just, and men, as much as they love nurturing of the woman, they really want you to nurture themselves, because that's what's really exciting to them. Because when they see a woman who's together and not like, like dressing like mom. And Shanann was she was hip, man. I gotta say, that woman had it going on. She always looked good to me. I mean, I thought she was very in herself. And that's why, okay. So yes, Chris was very intelligent. And in fact, they called him Rain Man because he knew how to figure stuff out. But you see, here's the thing. He was so intelligent, but he was so destroyed by a mother who was, and I'm going to say this, who was inflicting emotional incest. Now, emotional incest is along the lines of this. By the way, everybody, this is a big one. And it was so funny. My editor wanted to take this out of my book. And I was like, no, we're keeping it in. It's a line in, I want to say it's in How to Read the Cards for Yourself and Others. And I was really fighting on this. It says, oh, damn. Now I lost the word. It's going to come to me at like 3 in the morning. Let me go back to what we were talking about. Okay. Okay. If you feel sorry for your parents, you were abused by them. Sorry. Now, what does that mean? Did they purposely abuse you? Not necessarily. They really may not have known. But there's abuse in the area where you have pity for them. The moment you associate pity with love, you're not in love. And when we look at the idea that Chris was Googling, what is love? How does it feel? What is it like? He was feeling so much like sexual energy for NK. He did not know what that felt like, because to him, it was wrong to have that energy, because you see, his mother was using him as I want to say it, as her surrogate husband. Because look at how she tried to turn Chris into a mini Ron, and she was trying to get the attention from Chris that I don't know that Ronnie was able to give her. And again, I'm not trying to blame these people. I'm trying to really just give you an overview of what I'm seeing in some of this. So yeah, I don't think Shanann was fake, but I think, Karen's making a point. We're all a little fake at times. Yeah, who cares, Yeah, good, Emily, daddy breakthrough, right? So I know. I had that with my dad. I have to, there we go. Let's see. There's something here that Therese said, and I think you're going to please instead of love. Yes. Therese Velthoven said that. Really brilliant. I agree. We have a private and public self. Let's see. Aw, Stephanie, I think, you know what? I thank you for that, because I'm very honored that anybody would think I'm half the woman Shanann was, because I really feel that this was an incredible woman, and I feel like I miss a friend. I really deeply miss a friend, and it has brought me to some real sadness, because I just think she was such a great person, and she was an example of a friend that, somebody said, Chris had so many friends, and I said, no, he had extensions that people that loved Shanann. So hold on, let me see. When Chris Watts said he didn't want the baby, Shanann, oh yeah. When Chris Watts said he didn't want the baby, she was blown away. She didn't know what to do. Yeah, the law of attraction. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's Shimmersole said that. Thank you. Oh no, I missed so much. Yeah, Brittany, this was a good one, but you can watch it later. Just stay with us now. You're here now. That's all that matters. Let me see. You showed up in my recommended, so must be this YouTube. Thank you. Our channels are so different. Oh, great. Great. I'm so glad you're here, EMS. M's, I want to say it's M's Coffee Convo. Welcome, welcome, welcome to, to the party. And I'm going to go check your channel out. Thanks for joining me. Let's see. So somebody said, so Tori, how do we break the cycle and raise men sensitive but manly? My son's 12. Encourage him. Encourage him to make decisions. Reread the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's a wonderful, I'm getting truth bumps. There's a wonderful section in it. And Stephen Covey, who's one of those deceased, who was absolutely brilliant, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he really talked about, there was a great story, he talks about his son taking care of the lawn and how he really empowered his son. And I think that we need to, as women, empower men to do the right thing. And part of that is I hate to say this, not having their answer all the time. Saying to someone, I know that you'll figure this out. It goes back to my girlfriend saying to me, my husband has given me everything I've ever wanted, never when I wanted it. So, it's the thing of letting people show up the way they show up. And, allowing your 12-year-old, because he's 12, that's old enough to know better. And, please keep him away from this crap of toxic masculinity, which there is none. Sorry, I know I'm going to blow some people up by that, and they're going to be mad at me and blah, blah, blah. You know what? That's just a way of saying, guys who are babied by their mothers and kind of making it not be anybody's fault. Well, I'm not saying fault here, but I am saying that, I'm sorry, but little boys have to ride dirt bikes. They have to do stuff that's out there and physical. Men make friendships by doing things. Women make friendships by talking and sharing and being in relationships. So as much as that sounds kind of stereotypical, see what your son needs. You know what your son needs. And really supporting him and being proud of him. There's another one that I really, that I read years ago that really changed my life around, and is part of my thing of like, I'd rather share with people than have children. This was my thing, and it was such a great, thing. It was, I want to say it was, I think it was Zig Ziglar. Love him. Okay. Let's see. I do those things. That's enough. Yeah, of course it is. You know what? Supporting a young boy into being a man and reminding him that he is the sum total of the others he hangs around with. And so you say to him, remember that if you want to be successful, hang out with successful people. You hang out with losers, you're going to become one. And it really is that simple. But don't criticize his friends. Just share that information and say, and remember, you know what your son wants the most. And by the way, by the time they're 11 or 12, they know what they want. He'll figure it out. And here's the thing. I remember, and this was a girlfriend's son. He was like, I want to say he was 11. And he came in and we're talking. And I'm saying to him, so what do you want to do? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, what do you like? What's your interests? And he said, well, I like my bike. I really like fixing it. And she rolled her eyes. And I was like, well, tell me more about fixing it. And she was like, ugh. And later she said, don't encourage that. I'm like, I'm going to encourage anything somebody likes to do as long as they're not harming another person. What's wrong with you? She said, well, I really want him to go to college. I said, he's 11 years old. Well, I just want you to know that was 10 years ago. By the time he was 18, he was working in high school at a bike shop. She was just like trying to discourage it. And he would call me and go, Mom's getting me crazy. I'd be like, she's okay. She loves you. And he'd be like, oh. Anyway, the point is he ended up going on to own 3 or 4 bike shops. And I think he's only 24 now. 25. Well, anyway, he got married last year and they had a baby and he's a great father and he runs bike shops. here's what I want to say. Always support people in something that's healthy and wonderful, even if you're afraid that it might hurt them. Because I'm going to tell you something. There are also boys who say, I want to be firemen. Take them down to the fire station. Let them hang out with the firemen. You know, the reason I say this to you is we have this idea of what our children are supposed to be. Segue into Tori Loughlin, who I adore. And I just hate what's happening. You know? I mean, look at what's happened with the idea that, hey, you didn't go to college. No, that's not that. I have nothing against college, by the way, everybody. I think it's great. If a kid wants to go to college and you want them to go to college and, that seems to be the right thing for them, God bless, right on, power to them. But you know what? Always support your child in where they are, because it goes back to the General Patton quote. Never tell somebody how to do something. Tell them what you want them to do and let them surprise you with their ingenuity. And what I said to her son that day is, and I'll never forget, he was 11 years old. And he said later, it was like, wow, that was really an eye opener. I said, you know what? I know you're going to handle this. And if you just keep doing what you love and you remember that you need to hang around with people that are successful in that arena, like hang out with other bikers, hang out with other people that are doing that in a healthy manner, you'll always be successful. And she was like, and the truth is that, that's what happened. And he didn't speak to his mom for a little while because she was furious. She didn't speak to me either for a little while. She was furious when he didn't go to college, and he took the money and he opened his first bike shop, but he's never looked back, and then she kind of softened and, and he was like, what am I going to do about mom? I said, when the first grandchild comes along, she'll be fine. And, it was way before that she went to his wedding. But the point I'm making is that we forget that there are children who come out at 3 years old and can play Beethoven. Those are kind of rare when somebody can, like we see these kids that can draw, and sometimes kids don't have that aptitude, but they have a heart or they have something special about them. Letting them develop that aspect of themselves is really key to who they're going to become. And as adults, we can have conversations with them that will help them. And, we can have conversations with parents that will help them. Let me jump in. Okay. Yes, red like wine. When I was in my 20s, my close friends were all very successful corporate people, like lawyers. It helped me to be confident and successful. Now, here's the thing. When I was in my 20s, I hung out with like actors and theater people and creatives, and I always felt like I belonged somewhere. I always felt like I had a home with these people. So as I say that to you, that's exactly, you have to be in the area that means the most to you. And I didn't know where this would lead me. I want to quit my corporate job and buy a food truck. Right on, M. Hank, do it. Let me tell you something. We don't live forever, okay? And the sad thing is that here is Cindy Watts, who, I am going to say this, she had a very bright son. And instead of stepping back and recognizing that she was in pain, she was someone who couldn't fathom allowing him to be who he was meant to be. That's what happens. So I'm actually really excited that we're having this conversation tonight, because I think that it's very empowering to recognize that, here's the thing. The reason we blame ourselves, this is going to be the big, okay, get ready. Big one. The reason we blame ourselves and we try to blame ourselves for things is because if we can blame someone like ourselves, then we can fix it. If we recognize that we can't fix it and we have no one to blame, then there's sadness. Because the truth is, Cindy Watts could blame Shanann, but the truth is Shanann was a healthy version of Cindy. And the sad thing is that Cindy was not aware enough because somebody took her hostage. And my sense, when I look at the pattern energetically, when I look at the pattern of holding on to her son, I'm going to say that she did not get any masculine support. I'm going to say there were a lot of men who behaved very badly in her family, and there were a lot of masculine women who controlled everything because in her mind, men were weak. And so she was trying to be the strength for them. And you see, when you try to compensate in that way, she already had an agenda, like an idea, right? Men are weak. And therefore she had to do something about it that she thought was going to change everything. Jody Z, thank you for the super chat. That means a lot to me. It really does. And I really appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see. Yep. Jillian, yes, bang on right about Shanann, being the healthy Cindy, which is why she detested her and felt threatened. Yeah. See, I think let me see. Sean says, Emily, I have a friend who's a plumber. Is he single? I'm telling you, my mother used to say, marry a plumber. He makes a nice 6-figure salary and has to turn down work. He said that there's so few plumbers around. Hello. Thank you, Sean. Let me tell you something. You have a plumber. I'm telling you, you will never have a leak. What does that tell you? He's gonna make his living. He's gonna like what he's doing. He's gonna be out there helping people. This is why I'm in love with Mike Rowe, if I have to say, truthfully. Yes, Dawn, thank you. Like and sub. She said like and sub. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, please subscribe if you like what I'm saying, if you're kind of like, yeah, I want to know about this. And remember that when you subscribe, hit the little bell, because what happens is you'll get a notification if I'm going to go live or if I'm doing something. And yes, I am going to be talking a little bit more about the energy of chakra and how that moves through our life. And I applied it to a tarot deck. So I am going to talk about that and the energy of what that means. I'm going to do that on, not tonight, I'm going to do that on a different specific feed. I may be doing that, and I'm not sure. I may be doing those just for my Patreon, and the live radio I may be doing just for my Patreon, only because then I won't get thrown out on YouTube for using things. I can kind of do whatever I want over there. But I will let you know what my decisions are going to be regarding that. I just don't want to insult people. And I think, but at a certain point, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to insult them. This is the thing. It's like, I get people who are meanies. Let's talk about being nice. Can we talk about being nice with each other? So I want to tell you something. There is always someone who is this close to ending their life. We don't know it. We don't see them in common everyday life. They pass us on the street. Oh, we talked to that person 3 weeks ago, or we knew that person in high school. We drifted away. There's always someone who is inches from taking their own life. Please be kind to people. Before you come on and be a snarkosaurus on any of these feeds, remember that some of these creators are like doing their best. And other people who are commenting and saying, this happened to me, they're coming from their heart and they need your support. Please remember that you can be the difference between life and death in the moment for someone. And I always encourage people to seek help. It's so important that we do that for each other. Christina, thank you. I'm so glad you made it to my live. And thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Here's the funny thing. She said, you're so inspiring. I can't be inspiring. I can't be that person unless I have people like yourself who are, I'm getting truth bumps, who are living in that energy and really choose to be that way. I'd rather live inspired than live depressed. Color me crazy, so would all of you be okay if I do a non-political little bit of a rant around, and it's okay if you say no because I won't bring it up, just a little bit around Mr. Biden? And it has to do with this. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. Somebody said go. Okay, just bear with me. This is non-political, all right? Because I've always had my feelings about Joe Biden, and it doesn't really matter. But what I want to say about this whole thing, the inappropriate touching, he's been known as Creepy Joe for 30 years, more than that. And they've let him slide because his son died. I think he lost 2 children. He lost his wife. This man has been through incredible tragedy. And I don't feel it excuses this behavior, but I feel that what makes this scary is that he has no idea that he is doing any of it. And what makes it even more scary is how we allow people to behave in a way that's unacceptable if it fits our agenda. And I want to say that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I kind of went on in a video about that I'm kind of debating about putting up I talked about Joe Biden, Jussie Smollett, Lori Loughlin, and all of this because I felt like, stop having an agenda and just say what's wrong is wrong. I don't care like, and here's the thing about that. It's just plain creepy, all right? And on a certain note, I feel that he's been an okay guy, okay guy. But I feel like for someone like Alyssa Milano, who I share a birthday with, and believe me, for someone like Alyssa Milano to come out and say that she, accepts him and forgives him and it's not bad, but meanwhile it's bad when she thinks someone did it, it's not cool. I think that we have to kind of teach each other what bad behavior is and not condemn people. So, he's been known as Creepy Joe for 100 years, and that's okay, But I think we have to, it's not so much, hey, he's 70. It's more like, you know what? Here's the deal. That behavior is something you wouldn't do to a guy. So don't do it to a woman. And any woman I saw whose hair he was sniffing or, they didn't look comfortable. And there was one guy, and I'm really pissed about him. Biden was sniffing his daughter's hair and he's touching the daughter, and the daughter's like this. And the guy goes, he's such a good guy. I don't understand. I'm like, I want to hit that father. Okay. Because that guy, Joe, was touching your daughter and she did not look comfortable. Are you that checked out? So that's my thing, is that I'm a stand for people being comfortable around each other, okay? So I don't want to condemn Joe Biden, but I do want to say this has been acceptable behavior for 30 years. And now suddenly everybody's going, he's creepy? Well, I'm sorry, it's been creepy for 30 years. We need to stop that kind of behavior and accepting it. And so that's what we're talking about here. It's not so much, oh, he's a bad person. It's like, there are lots of good people that do inappropriate things. And I can't tell you how many people have gotten on my feeds and said great things about Cindy Watts. Oh, she's such a good person. Well, it's just like, yeah, it does suck. And I just think that, I think the thing is there is a blindness to unacceptable behavior when it comes from someone who's likable. And that's what we're seeing. And I think when we look at people who don't get away with it, like a Roseanne Barr, she's got some sickness going on. I really admire Roseanne Barr. I'm sorry to tell you all, but in the 80s, she made middle America look like it was okay. It was okay to be just an average family. When Hollywood was making fun of them, she validated it. And when you go after somebody like that, that's not cool in my book. I don't know that it's a standard of rich and famous so much as, hey, I gotta be honest with you. If I walked up to any of you and smelled your hair and put my hand on your shoulders, you'd be like, get off me, Tori. But you see, we can't say that to people in power. And that's what that issue's about. It's not so much, you don't want to be looking like the one that blew the whistle, So that said, he's been doing this for 30 years. I do think in that time period, I think it was just kind of like, that's Joe. But I think at a certain point when you are in denial about the person pulling away or going like this, or one child going like this, and touching a child's face like that, that's, I'm sorry, that's like not cool. Like, you touch me like that, I'm telling you right now, I would deck you. I mean, I'd be like headlines, Secret Service would be dragging me in. Woman decks Joe Biden. I mean, I'm sorry, I just would. And if I'm going to tell you something else, if he did that to my kid, I'd go, get your hands off her or him. And if I saw him doing it to your kid, I'd say the same thing, because it's not cool. And I remember one time, and that was my whole lecture, by the way. I remember one time I was in the library, and it was I want to say it was a Middle Eastern family, because it was a different culture, right? Because it was the culture of they can hit their daughters when their daughters do something wrong. And this man in front of me was yelling, and I didn't recognize the language. This is like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It was in the Beverly Hills Library. And he was screaming at the top of his lungs, and everybody's going like this. He's like nothing, right? And I'm just holding, 2 books, and he screams at her, and then he grabs her by the hair and he slaps her. Now, this is a 16-year-old girl. I had books in my hand, and I just went like this to him. And of course, like, everybody was like, but luckily the security guard came over, but the security guard came over to me, right? And I go, restrain him. And he did. And of course the police came, and it was just a big fiasco, but I didn't get charged, thank God. But because everybody else was standing up and going, nobody did anything but her. And I was like, of course not, like, why me, But the point I'm making is because the lines have to change. We've been in this type before. Men had their spaces. We're in new times. I agree with you, Emily. And I think that, yeah, I think he is on a platform. And I think regardless of what you think, someone else said, I keep it at the arm's distance. And I thought that's a great way to put it. How are you? Brilliant. So, I think we have to, like, I know Black Rose, I think it's Black Rose 11. I like Roseanne. Yeah, I don't know if he was Pakistan. I don't know what he was. I really don't, and I'm not trying to say it was one, but it was a culture that really doesn't allow women to speak out. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, yeah. If someone took you by the shoulders, thank you, Em. Interesting that the likable, sympathetic characters can be given a pass, while someone like Roseanne Barr, who can be crass at times, aren't given a pass. And you know why? Same thing. Okay, check this out. Same thing, and I love her now with, oh gosh, what's her name? Margaret, the cook, the chef. She went to jail. You know who I mean. She went for insider trading. Come on, somebody knows her name. Let's see. Yep. Martha Stewart. Thank you. Okay. Martha Stewart went to jail for insider trading. And you know why Martha got away? You know why she went? Because she knew if she did the crime and did the time, she could regain her dignity, because she didn't turn those guys in. She played the game. Okay. Roseanne wasn't going to play the game. And also Martha Stewart was really a bitch. She kind of like, and the thing is, they wanted to get her. They wanted to bring her down, and they did. They brought her down, Yeah, please like, thank you. Please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell right on. Please do that. It seemed as though touching my oh God, thank you, Lauren. She just said when she was 7 months pregnant, everybody was touching her belly. Please don't walk up to pregnant women and touch them. All right. Can we just have this conversation? Like, first of all, germs. All right. Secondly, they're not open season for you, touchy-feely. Like, really, like personal space. It's beyond that. It's respecting that someone may not want you to touch them. Don't touch me. So Martha Stewart went to jail. And when she got out, and by the way, when she was in jail, she taught women how to cook. She taught them how to sew. She taught them all of these skills. Now, here's the thing I want to say. Roseanne Barr and Martha Stewart were unlikable, so they went to prison. And I think that we're looking at a time when we really have to say, you know, it's not cool that, now you guys have heard me say this again and again and again, I'm gonna say it anyway, that Bill Cosby's show is still running on TV1, but yet Roseanne has lost her series. And notice how that series went away. Notice how every single person on that show, they'll never work again because they all stabbed her in the back. And the other thing, of course, was that, you know, Roseanne had an alternate point of view and nobody liked to hear it because it didn't go along with, we've all got to be this way. Instead of the idea of like, what's wrong with you disagreeing with me, right? What's wrong with that? I mean, who cares? You know, it's not going to change. It's not going to destroy my life. Here's the thing. As long as you honor other people and other faiths in my world, I'm fine with it. I don't care. You know, I don't want anybody attacked. And I don't care where you're sitting. I think it's rude. And we just have to go back to being nice, right? Let's go back to be kind. Okay, so let me see if they've got culture plays a role. Red like wine. I think culture plays a part in this. I stand very close or sit close to people when speaking, but I understand that some may not like it. You know, I'll tell you something. If I'm uncomfortable, I'll just say, could you move over a little? My space thing is going on. You know, I got a space bell. You know, I just got like, you know, I have a friend who does that. She'll sit down with me and she'll sit like right next to me. And I'm like, girl, you're making me uncomfortable. And she's like, what do you mean? But that's her thing. She just sits, and I'm like, because I feel weird. It just feels like you're too close because I can't talk to you, you know? And she's like, okay, so we just move a few feet apart and then I can talk to her, you know? But I just open up and I say, I'm not comfortable. But here's the thing. We have not validated our children to speak up when they're not comfortable. We've shamed them. We've told them, don't speak to so-and-so like that. Because I think we have to be able to say, you know, Joe, Cindy doesn't look comfortable. Sweetheart, you okay? And then Cindy can go, you know what? I'm not comfortable. Okay. Joe, could you move back a little? I don't think she knows how to voice that because you're such a good person and she doesn't want to say that to you, you know? But as adults, we have to, it is our job to raise the children to have a voice so they can speak up and they can see what's going on. You know, the issue with Cindy Watts is not that I think it's that she didn't teach Chris to speak up because she didn't know how. And I think it is a generational thing. And like I said, I think there's a real pathos to this because going back to what I said earlier about Cindy Watts and about Chris, her son, if we really look at the hidden agenda, right? And we look at, even as I talk about Joe Biden, what is his agenda? His agenda is to want everybody to like him. He's a real guy. He's in there with you. He's your friend. But you know, having a biker's girlfriend sit on your lap while the bikers are on either side glaring at you, that's probably not the smartest thing to do. Because you see, he doesn't have an awareness of that his agenda, which is to get people to like him and be part of the community, it's so strong, that agenda is so strong, and we can see it because he wants to be likable. And there are people who understand that, so they let him do it. Well, we can understand that and say, you know what, Joe, I get that you want to be likable, and I get that you're, you know, a pretty decent guy, okay? However, this is not a cool thing to do, and I think you're going to have to be liked for being you rather than being like so intimate with people that are not comfortable with your level of intimacy. And I'm sorry, swimming naked in your pool while a female Secret Service agent is there and has told you she's uncomfortable, that's also abusive. So when we talk about this kind of stuff, I'm talking about it, you know, not so much as a partisan issue, but as a thing of like, you know, like I'm really trying not to be like, oh, look, this is this person. It's everybody does stuff that's wrong, but it's looking at how do we shift that behavior? You know, how do we say, tap, 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 Joe, how about I get you a pair of Speedos if you really want to show everything, okay? Like, we can still see it enough, you know? Okay, let's see. I tell my daughter to tell people instead. Yeah, and I think that's important. Yes, Biden did do that. He swam naked. He swam naked in his pool, and let's see. Oh, that's so sweet, Danielle. You give him hula hoops. That's so cool. Yeah, I agree with you, Karen, on this. The one thing I don't like about Roseanne is that she won't take responsibility for her actions. It was Ambien, then anti-Semitism, now Michelle Obama. You have to take responsibility for your actions. You know, I am going to say that I feel that in her case, I think she has a very bad addiction, and addicts do that. They blame everybody but themselves. And until they admit they're powerless over that substance, they're going to always look outside themselves. And so I think that I'm gonna 100% agree with you on that. And I think that's why it's very frustrating to watch Roseanne destroy herself, because, you know, she just keeps blaming everybody else. And I think that's very well said, Karen Curtis. Thank you for bringing that up. Because what I feel on this channel is this is a dialogue. It's not, you know, it's, yes, I